Marie Antoinette's life is one of the most famous cautionary tales in history. Born into power, married into a monarchy, and ultimately caught in the chaos of the French Revolution, her story is as complex as it is tragic. She was born on November 2, 1755, in Vienna, as Maria Antonia Josepha Joanna, the 15th child of Empress Maria Theresa of Austria and Holy Roman Emperor Francis I. As part of the Habsburg dynasty, one of the most powerful ruling families in Europe, her life was destined to serve a political purpose. Yet, as the 15th child, her birth was not met with much significance. Within the Habsburg family, the naming convention was both rigid and repetitive. Every daughter was given the first name, Maria. To avoid confusion, they were referred to by their middle names, which is why Maria Antonia was known simply as Antoine during her early years. Her mother, Maria Theresa, was one of the most formidable rulers of her time, an empress who governed vast territories while also raising 16 children. Her father, however, played a much different role. Francis I was known more for his indulgent lifestyle, gambling, socializing, and leaving the responsibilities of empire firmly in the hands of his wife. Despite this imbalance, Marie Antoinette had a close relationship with her father, who was a far gentler and more approachable figure compared to her politically driven mother. Education was not the primary concern for a child so far down the line of succession. While she was taught the essentials, religion, manners, and basic literacy, her academic preparation was notably lacking. French, the language of diplomacy and the court she would one day enter, remained a challenge for her well into adolescence. In fact, when a French tutor was sent to assess her education, his report was less than flattering, citing poor writing skills and a lack of intellectual discipline. However, where Marie Antoinette lacked in scholarship, she excelled in grace, charm, and music, particularly on the harpsichord, which would later become one of her defining talents. From an early age, her future was dictated by politics. In the mid-18th century, Europe's balance of power was fragile. Austria, having recently lost territory to Prussia, sought to secure its position through diplomatic marriages. This strategy, known as marriage diplomacy, was a long-standing tool of the Habsburgs, and Marie Antoinette became a key piece on the chessboard. To solidify a new alliance between Austria and France, it was decided that she would marry the Dauphin of France, Louis Auguste, the grandson of King Louis XV. At 14 years old, Marie Antoinette left Austria for France. The journey was not simply physical, it required a symbolic transformation. Upon reaching the French border, a formal ceremony known as the remise took place. Here, she was stripped of her Austrian clothing, separated from her attendants, including her beloved dog, and redressed in French garments. It was a deliberate act, meant to sever any lingering ties to her homeland. From that moment forward, Maria Antonia became Marie Antoinette, the future Queen of France. Upon her arrival at the Palace of Versailles, she encountered a world unlike anything she had known. The court at Versailles was rigid, ceremonial, and governed by etiquette that dictated every movement. Life was lived in public, down to the most intimate moments, including the royal bedchamber. For someone accustomed to the comparative privacy of the Austrian court, this level of scrutiny was both overwhelming and intrusive. Her new husband, Louis Auguste, was a reserved and academically inclined young man, far more interested in lock-making and hunting than in the social intrigues of the court. Their relationship was, by all accounts, awkward and most notably, unconsummated for 7 years. This delay was not merely a private matter, it became the subject of public speculation and international concern. In the 18th century, royal marriages were political contracts, and the absence of an heir posed a potential threat to the alliance between France and Austria. Concerned by the lack of progress, Empress Maria Theresa began writing increasingly urgent letters to her daughter, urging her to win over the king. Eventually, Marie Antoinette's brother, Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II, intervened directly, traveling to France in 1777 to counsel the young couple. Shortly afterwards, the marriage was consummated, and in 1778, Marie Antoinette gave birth to their first child, Marie Thérèse Charlotte, known as Madame Royal. Despite the birth of a daughter, Pressure for a male heir remained intense. Over the next several years, Marie Antoinette would give birth to 4 children, but only one son, Louis Joseph, who died of tuberculosis at age 7, would survive into early childhood. As queen, Marie Antoinette's spending habits became a source of controversy. Her lavish wardrobe, extravagant jewelry, and private retreat at Petit Trianon, a gift from Louis XVI, fueled public resentment. Though her expenditures were not solely responsible for France's financial crisis, they became a symbol of royal excess at a time when the nation faced economic hardship. The press, emboldened by the spread of liberal ideas, portrayed her as Madame Deficit, blaming her personal indulgence for the kingdom's mounting debts. Her attempts to seek solace in private amusements only worsened public opinion. At Petit Trianon, Marie Antoinette created a more informal lifestyle, where she played at shepherdess in a stylized pastoral village. To outsiders, this appeared frivolous, evidence that the queen was out of touch with the suffering of the French people. The tension between the monarchy and the people reached a boiling point in 1789, with the outbreak of the French Revolution. By then, the monarchy was no longer seen as a divine institution, but as a relic of privilege and corruption. Marie Antoinette, once a young girl sent to secure peace between nations, had become a scapegoat for the anger of an oppressed population. In October 1789, the Women's March on Versailles forced the royal family to leave the palace and move to the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where they lived under house arrest. Despite their diminished power, Marie Antoinette secretly corresponded with foreign monarchs, urging them to intervene and restore the French crown. These actions, viewed as treasonous, only intensified public hostility toward her. By 1791, the situation had become desperate. The royal family attempted to escape in what became known as the Flight to Varennes, a plan to flee to the Austrian Netherlands and rally loyalist forces. Disguised and traveling under false identities, they made it within miles of the border before being recognized and captured. The failed escape shattered any remaining trust between the monarchy and the people, reinforcing the belief that the royal family was conspiring against the revolution. In 1792, the monarchy was officially abolished, and the royal family was imprisoned. King Louis XVI was put on trial for treason, found guilty, and executed by guillotine in January 1793. With her husband dead and the monarchy dissolved, Marie Antoinette became simply Widow Capet, a prisoner awaiting her own fate. On October 14, 1793, she was brought before the Revolutionary Tribunal. The charges against her ranged from treason to conspiring with foreign powers, and even personal accusations intended to destroy her reputation. The trial was swift and largely predetermined. After 2 days of testimony, she was found guilty and sentenced to death. In the early morning hours of October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette was led from her cell in the conciergerie. Gone were the silk gowns and elaborate hairstyles. She wore a simple white dress, her hair shorn in preparation for the guillotine. As she was transported through the streets of Paris, jeering crowds lined the route, eager to witness the fall of a queen they had come to despise. At 12:15 p.m., Marie Antoinette was executed by guillotine in the Place de la Révolution, the same square where her husband had died months earlier. She was 37 years old. Her final words, spoken after accidentally stepping on the executioner's foot, were reportedly, "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." Her death marked the end of an era, the symbolic collapse of the ancient regime and the triumph of the revolution. Yet, beyond the propaganda and public perception, Marie Antoinette's life remains a complex and human story of a young girl thrust into a world of power, privilege, and ultimately, tragedy.